Patreon Q&A number 56. I want to thank all 71 of my incredible, amazing, just outrageously cool patrons, guys. Thank you so much for continuing to support me the way that you are. It means more to me than you know, truly. And to everyone else listening, there's going to be some spoilers in these questions and answers, so tread carefully after this point. Joseph K. asked, hey Shonen, you mentioned in your recent tier groups for the Monster Association members that the only heroes that could reasonably take out Orochi were Saitama, Tatsumaki, Blast, and King. King? Really? I completely agree that King has extreme luck protecting him, but I can't imagine a scenario where the world could actually align to kill Orochi. I can imagine that some unbelievable series of events would separate them, leading to someone else taking him out. Do you actually think his powers could kill something as strong as Orochi? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think luck has ever directly caused damage like a building falling on a monster, so having something like a meteorite hit Orochi just as he went to strike King just seems a little too overpowered for me. Best wishes, dude. So no, I don't think he would have like a meteorite or anything like that kill him. That would be cool if one eventually decides to go down that route, but I think even he understands that that would be, as you said, a little too overpowered, even though King is overpowered. But you already said how I think it's going to play out. The unbelievable series of events that would separate them, leading to someone else taking him out. It would inevitably would happen. Now, I don't think it's going to be an unbelievable series of events because all of these characters are in the relative vicinity of each other. So if King does encounter Orochi, there's going to be like a little back and forth at first, for sure, because we saw Orochi was talking to Saitama, and Orochi obviously knows who King is, so the spell is going to infect him. But Orochi is no coward, obviously, and he is going to be excited to go against King, because it was revealed that Orochi, very similar to Saitama in his approach to fights, he's bored, he hasn't really had a challenge, he's hungering for someone to be as strong as him and push him, so he would definitely go after King, no doubt about that. And that's when something is going to happen to where either Saitama is going to step in to take Orochi on, or Tatsumaki is going to step in to take him on, or a whole bunch of S-Class heroes are going to converge to fight for King. This is just ultimately one of his abilities. This is how things work for him. And some people will say, well, that's BS, that's unfair. Hey, that's just the way it plays out. Literally every single time that King cannot talk his way out of a fight or some other supernatural event happens. Also, I just want to touch on you saying like there's no other things that King has done to directly cause damage. The closest thing is to when he ran into that mimic monster and then he caused it to like die via fear, where like its ribs punctured its lungs or whatever happened. That's the closest thing to something like that happened. But every time we've seen King encounter a villain or a monster or something that he couldn't physically take down or just couldn't convince otherwise, someone has stepped in. Every single time, it's obviously not a coincidence. When he was in the vicinity of Beefcake and was possibly going to get stepped on, Saitama to the rescue. Vaccine Man, same thing, Saitama to the rescue. When he was going against G4, it was Genos and Saitama to the rescue. Now, even when he was staring down the executives, now he was intimidating the hell out of them and he was having verbal warfare with them. It was very awesome. But when it came down to the point of like a stalemate and the executives were eventually going to come after him, not only did someone step in to fight for him, it was multiple people. It was Zombie Man stepped in to take care of Homeless Emperor, Fubuki stepped in to take on Psychos, and then Amaime stepped in to take on Black S and Evil Natural Water. So something like that would definitely happen with Orochi here. They're all in the same vicinity, so I don't see why it wouldn't happen here as well. Even if it's not settled with a fight, maybe instead of Orochi being taken out by Saitama, maybe Giro calling for Orochi at this instance would cause him to go and help Giro deal with Tatsumaki. Like he's like, I'll deal with you later, King. I need to save my master. That's something that can happen too. But yeah, unfair. And you might say, well, this is, it's just because you want King to win. Yeah, I do want King to win. But this is literally what has happened every single time in the story. And until otherwise happens, we just have to assume that King is more or less essentially unbeatable, I guess. Bryan asks, hey Z, I was reading some of the chapters in between 101 and 106, and it seems like they hint at some of the heroes of My Man, Zombie Man, Puri, Pig God, as being inhuman or monsters. Do you think this is just hyperbole within the story, or do you think it's some kind of foreshadowing of some heroes being monster-like And that's what gives them crazy abilities. So no, I don't think this is hyperbole. I think this is a thing, and this has kind of been leading up to an ultimately huge reveal that I think will come later on in the story. But I kind of liken this to the Force in Star Wars. Now, of course, it's not the same thing, but I do think there are a lot of parallels. So the Force is the Force, and you've got the evil Sith, and you've got the good Jedi, but they're all kind of pulling from the same power source. But if you go down one road, you gain a different type of abilities, but if you go down the other, you gain a certain type of abilities, but it's all coming from the Force. And that's the same thing with like this inherent power dynamic in One Punch Man. You go one evil route, negative emotions explosion, you become a monster. If you go the other route, and you're more or less moralistically sound in your choices, you become superhuman or you become a hero. But it's all pulling from the same source. And then sometimes you can diverge from those set paths, and you kind of go into a gray area where you're in between. Kind of like what Giro was talking about in Chapter 92, when how she describes Pre-Will Garo. Not quite human, not quite monster, somewhere in between. Because he has like abilities of both. But he's not quite a monster yet, but he kind of has the attributes of a monster as well. And I feel like My Mask is definitely in this category. Now, either a My Mask is a pseudo-monster, the way that Pre-Will Garo is, or he is already a monster, but he's able to retain his human form permanently, possibly, kind of like Hellfire and Gale do. But then he retains, like, the freakish power that monsters typically have, because he does have the regeneration. He has some freaky regeneration. I don't even think Pre-Will Garo could, like, pick up a severed arm and then reattach it quickly. Although it hasn't been revealed, but no one has really shown to have like an ability like that yet. Now, Awakened Garo is a whole different story. Talking about Pre-Will Garo here. But as for Puri Puri, he might be going into that territory too, because he recently picked up regeneration. He picked up the Bristle Armor, which is definitely a mutation on the spot. So that's kind of monstery in itself. Pig God, a little harder to define. He might have some kind of inherent mutation that he was born with. I don't think he developed this. At least it doesn't seem like he did. Although what he's eventually pulling from could be going into the path of a monster as well. And then Zombie Man, he's like literally a monster, at least by the definition of Dr. Genus, because he says there are also those whose cell mutations are triggered by environmental factors, as well as those like my research specimens who become monsters through the power of science. That's literally what Zombie Man is. He has stupid regeneration. He's a friggin' zombie. But ultimately, whether he is a monster technically or not, it's really ultimately how you decide to go about things and how you choose to essentially use your power. We also see Genos on this page, like this collage of monsters throughout all of its exposition through Dr. Genus. Now, this is like a cool little Easter egg for Murata, and he didn't draw it by accident. He put Genos there for a reason. And I don't think he's like explicitly telling us that Genos is a monster, guys. He's secretly evil. I don't think that's what he's saying. I think that he's putting here is that it could, technically could be considered that Genos is a monster because he fits the clarifications here. And there also are some negative emotions that Genos has. He is driven by revenge, which isn't really an altruistic, type of moral to have, generally, even though it's coming from a justice standpoint. Still, Genos could be considered a monster because he is modified. And he's kind of like, looks evil, I guess. But still pretty cool that Murata put that there. It's like an Easter egg. But ultimately, it comes down to, even if these S-Class heroes are monsters or pseudo-monsters, it really depends on what their morals are and how they use their abilities. I really can't wait for the story to go into like a good monster. I think it's going to go there. I really hope it does. Like we're going to see like a monster that just becomes good, or a monster that was just born good. Or maybe there's like a Hellfire and Gale type of dude who can go in between human and monster, but he's like a hero as well. American Panda asks, "We lit? What is up, boy?" I've been here since you started last summer. Glad the channel is growing and looking fly. Hey, thank you so much, American Panda. I know that you're an OG in this Patreon game, and I appreciate that so much. And I also really like the positivity and energy that you're always bringing, so thank you for that as well. My question, what do you think of Stylebender versus John Jones after Stylebender's UFC 243 performance? He's growing rapidly, and he's improving on that Ultra Instinct. Much love, G. Stay dope. Hey, you stay dope too, American Panda. So I am looking forward to this fight, and I do think it's inevitably going to happen. Eventually. I mean, the feud is already there. Dana White, the rest of the UFC knows that this will be a huge super fight, but it just needs to go into the oven a little bit more. Izzy needs to get like a title defense or two under his belt. And then the feud needs to strengthen a little more, and then it's there. Like, the narrative has already been put out there that, like, Jones is jealous of Izzy, and I think that's a little bit true for sure. It fits the type of person that Jones is, but, you know, well, that's a whole nother topic for another time. But unfortunately, at least at this moment in time, I don't think Izzy has enough to deal with Jones's clinch game and his wrestling. Now, granted, I think Izzy is the best striker in the UFC, and Jones is probably the best wrestler next to Khabib. It's really up to you who you ultimately think is the best wrestler, but it's one of the two, easily. And at this point in time, I don't think he has enough to deal with it. Now, maybe 2 years down the line when this fight eventually happens, and maybe even happens next year, maybe Izzy will advance enough to where he could possibly deal with it enough to KO Jones on the feet, which I totally think he's capable of. Now, granted, Jones hasn't really been dropped before. He's been rocked, but I don't think he's ever been, like, dropped. Definitely not been KO'd. But I do think Izzy is the one to do it. And also, Izzy has one of the benefits of being relative in size to Jones. Like, that's one of Jones' weaknesses. When he usually goes against somebody that's around his size, he doesn't have that advantage that he usually has, where he imposes, like, his reach and height over his opponents. Like, Stylebender is listed to be like 6'4", and so is Jones, but really he seems to be like 6'2" or 6'3" in my opinion. He doesn't really seem to be 6'4", but I could be wrong. Also, his reach is like 80 inches allegedly, and Jones is like 84, so that's lining up pretty good. And like I said, considering his other opponents, but based off of Izzy's wrestling against Kelvin Gastelum, which showed that he's gone many leaps above what he initially came into the UFC with. Like, he's no scrub. He's the champion for a reason, not just because of wrestling. Not because of striking. He does have the wrestling, but it's not enough to deal with Jones right now. I think he would get the better of Jones on the feet, definitely, and that would force Jones to take him down. And if he didn't finish him from ground and pound and wearing him out, he would probably get the better of a decision, maybe like a 50-45 or a 49-46. But I hope Izzy advances enough in his wrestling or just clinch defense to eventually to be the first person to finish Jones on the feet. That's what I would love to ultimately happen. But we'll see until then. But right now, I just don't think he's quite there in his grappling. Free-Tshirts asks, hey, Shoney, you pretty much answered my question I originally had in one of your new videos, so I came out with a new one. My question is about Tank Top Master. We've seen almost everyone get buffs from webcomic to manga, like Peri Peri Prisoners, Vibration Attacks, and Bristle Armor. So if at all, what do you think Tank Top Master's big power boost is going to be? It's really obviously that one is pushing the narrative that he knows he is one of the weakest and is working out more and more to try and overcome it. Is he just going to get stronger, or is he going to get some mutation or unnatural boost? I know I say it every time, but I really appreciate all the work you put in. Thank you so much, man. Hey, thank you so much for your support, Free-Tshirts. Thank you. I appreciate that, my friend. So yes, Tank Top Master is for sure going to get a buff, but it really depends on when it's going to happen. And I know this for a fact because some light was shed on him in Chapter 107, and there was only like a specific amount of characters from the S-Class that were focused on in this chapter. It was kind of showing you where storylines are going in the next coming arc and chapters, and he was one of them. He said he essentially needs to retrain the Tank Top, whatever that means. Retrain, figure out how to become stronger a different way, and that leads to the question, is he going to get an unnatural boost like you said? Maybe he goes out and finds somebody that can help him that way. But it more so seems like Tank Top Master is just going to, I don't know, figure out some way to train more. Or maybe Tank Top Master is one of the ones to go over to the Neo heroes. Because, you know, a few of the other heroes that they touched on in that chapter, like Darkshine and Darkshine and Child Emperor, they went to the Neo heroes. And then Flashy Flash, who was also focused on, he has like a whole friggin' arc surrounded by him right now. And then we have the whole Zombie Man and Dr. Genus thing. So maybe he went to Dr. Genus? I don't know. It was a little too quick to seem like that happened. It was all happening on the same page. Maybe. That would be kind of interesting. But I do think Tank Top Master might go down the route of like Glasses. Maybe he just pushes himself harder than he's ever been pushed. And day in and day out, he like keeps pushing and pushing. And then maybe he just becomes stronger progressively that way. And maybe he has like a new look on life. Because he has like this real weird like gaggy... He's definitely, like, closer to a gag character than most with, like, how he views the tank top. Like, he never, like, breaks character with this thing. Like, he seriously believes that the tank top has like some kind of like supernatural ability to it almost that gives him and everyone else who wears it power. So unless he lets go of that, or maybe it literally is the thing, you know, who knows? Anything can really happen in this world. But Tank Top Master, I feel like he's just going to train more. Maybe like adopt like a Darkshine type of training method, and then he just randomly gets stronger that way. Or maybe Darkshine is the one who trains him, because if he does go to the Neo Heroes, we know that Darkshine is like their top trainer, so maybe he gets it from him. But one thing is for sure, is that Tank Top Master will come back with a vengeance. Jordan asks, hey Shonen, I'm very new to the Patreon stuff, and you're the first person I've become a patron of, but I really love your YouTube content, so I thought this would be a cool way to show you that. Hey, thank you so much, Jordan, for deciding to support me and come over to Patreon and joining the Q&A. I hope it's good enough for what you wanted, so let's get into it. Katakuri versus Doflamingo. From everything we've seen in the story with their Haki and Devil Fruits, I feel Katakuri win just because Katakuri's armament and observation was on a different level than Luffy's at the time, plus they both are awakened users. I just really want to hear your opinion on that subject. Again, I love and appreciate your content, man. Thank you again, Jordan, and I appreciate you, my friend. So I think you've pretty much nailed it on the head. Katakuri would likely win this because his armament and observation are definitely on a different level. Not only to Luffy's, well, especially at the time, but to Daffy's from what we've seen. I mean, Daffy was pushed to his absolute limits by Luffy. Katakuri was definitely pushed to his limits as well, but in a different way. People don't like to hear it. A lot of people will try to deflect from it, but Luffy did have plot armor on his side in that fight. I'm not taking anything away from him. He won fair and square. And also there is the narrative that you can look into that Katakuri was just surprised. And he ultimately was overtaken by Luffy's will. You know, Katakuri had never really been pushed that far before. And he ultimately wanted to lose. Some people can look at it that way. He wanted Luffy to beat him, but that doesn't mean he allowed him to win. However, with Daffy, it will be a much different fight. And there is a clear difference between Katakuri's armament and Doflamingo's. Now, granted, I don't think it would be an easy fight for either one. Daffy is no weakling, as we've saw. He's ridiculous. And I think if he had a real bounty, it would be very close to what Katakuri's is. I think Doflamingo would be close to 1 billion, if not 1 billion bounty. Yes, I do know that they are not power levels. But it just seems like, given that Daffy wasn't as strong, at least if you're comparing the Katakuri fight with Luffy to the Doflamingo fight with him, it just seems like Katakuri is clearly the stronger of the two, and that's ultimately what's going to come down to. You know, because that's what it came down to with Katakuri and Luffy. Whose Haki was better, and it was Katakuri's Haki. Also, I really don't see Doflamingo faring that well against Katakuri's busted observation Haki. Something that Luffy kind of adapted on the fly, and we had a couple flashbacks to when he was training with Rayleigh, which Doflamingo hasn't really shown that he has that. Now, he does have an awakened fruit, just like you said, and they both would utilize them very well. But Katakuri would just ultimately overcome Doflamingo. It would be cool to see them fight for sure, and I would love it. I'd pay for like DLC if we just got a little bonus chapter to see this fight. But like I said, it wouldn't be easy for either one. But Katakuri would either mid-diff, maybe high-diff Doflamingo. Joshua D asks, hey, Shona, my question this week is, which heroes do you think could defeat Brilliant Phoenix Man? I honestly think he was one of the most powerful monsters besides Golden S, Evil Natural Water, and Orochi. So, yeah, Phoenix Man, Brilliant Eagle, definitely super powerful. And he's one of the most powerful monsters that we've seen in the series, but I don't think besides Golden S, Evil Natural Water, and Orochi. So he does have some crazy significant abilities on his side. No doubt about that. You know, his King Awakening's Light is ridiculous. Very unique to him as well. But he just hasn't shown enough. And he hasn't been, like, that impressive to make me believe that he's, like, in the top 4 or 5, really. I don't even think he's really close to above Dragon. I think he's, like, low-high Dragon, if that even makes sense. Just because, like, his speed is ambiguous. Like, we don't really know how fast he is. He's shown to be very fast, but, you know, what are we comparing that against? You know, it's hard to say. It's hard to say how ultimately strong he is. Now, he could, you know, instantly grab Brave Giant's arm off of, like, his torso. Very impressive, but, like, I feel like a lot of other monsters could do that, too. But it ultimately comes down to, like, matchups and stuff. So as you were saying, what other heroes could take him down? So Blast, I think that goes without saying. I think Tatsumaki could take care of him. Silver Fang could probably high diff him maybe. And Atomic Samurai, it's like another thing it's difficult to say. Like, can Phoenix Man deal with the Atomic Slash? You know, is he fast enough to avoid it? It's hard to say. Metal Knight, I think he could take care of him. You know, Metal Knight's projected full arsenal would likely take care of almost anyone that we've seen so far, at least. Zombie Man, hard to say. Maybe not. Also, it's like, what is Phoenix Man's regular durability like? Obviously, he is a tank when it comes to energy absorption. That's like his main thing. He absorbed or survived the Emperor Nova. Very impressive, but could he survive like multiple punches from like Oketsu or something, you know? Or could he survive punches from Darkshine, who I think could probably take him? I mean, if Darkshine can take Carnage Kabuto, I think it's, you know, not far-fetched to say that he could take Phoenix Man, Brilliant Eagle. Watchdog Man, I don't know. That's off the table. We don't know his potential yet. I think Drive Knight could probably take him. Flashy Flash, hard to say. Could he deal with his speed? I mean, could Phoenix Man deal with Flashy Flash speed? Could Flashy Flash behead him? I think he could. Maybe. And also, I think beheading Phoenix Man would probably end him. Like, a lot of people think that, like, no matter what you do to him, he'll just keep resurrecting. I don't think that's the case. Even if you don't remove his suit from him, I think if you turn him to mincemeat, if you decapitate him, if you destroy his head, or if you disintegrate him, I think he's done. Some people think otherwise. I don't think there's any evidence to support that. And then, yeah, pretty much like the guys that I mentioned. Everyone else would probably have a really hard time or lose to him. Not even going to mention King because I just talked about him. But, yeah, I think he's obviously ridiculous. But I just don't think he's in the very, very top tier. He just needs a little more feats on his side. Legandaryus asks, just saw your organization video and I have an answer for why they are named G4 and G5. They stand for generation, like your phone has for data and actual generation. Also, Drive Knight would be G0 since G3 seems to be weaker than Drive Knight. Also, every generation is supposed to be better than the last. My theory would be the organization is trying to remake Drive Knight as he would be considered the perfect robot since he has the closest to what would be considered human and also powerful. There is also the fact that he was never lost a fight. That also lines up with the organization. One, stronger robots like Drive Knight. Hey, that's a good one. G could stand for generation. And I do think that they are similar, like G4, G5, and the number succession. I do think it's similar to like iPhones. I should have made that more clear. Not iPhone specifically, but one is better than the other. One is a successor. I should have made that more clear in the video. But yeah, I do think that's more or less what's going down here. Drive Knight being G0, that could be the thing too, because I just think it all starts with Drive Knight more or less. Although the brain robot, it's hard to decipher what's going on with him as he's the only one that seems to have a friggin' brain. Drive Knight seems to be, I guess, like AI, like I said. But yeah, I mean, I think your theory makes sense here. And they are probably trying to replicate Drive Knight, but then it's like, why can't they? And then also could line up with, like, I guess Drive Knight was one of a kind. Maybe he was an anomaly. Maybe he is like Ultron, kind of. And that's why they just can't replicate him. So they just keep trying and trying by gathering all of their data the way that they are and trying to make someone as powerful as Drive Knight possibly. But also, like, no one else has, like, the gear that Drive Knight has, which seems like they could replicate that, right? So other people should have, like, the battle layout that Drive Knight has, unless it's, like, difficult to make or something. I don't know. It just raises a lot of questions, and there's so much speculation with the organization. But I think what you're saying is pretty solid. Steven asks, Koj, dude, I know I messed that up. Do you think Metal Knight knows that Drive Knight considers him an enemy? Have a great week. Hey, you have a great week too, Steven. This is a great question. And it's hard to say because I don't think Metal Knight has ever really talked about Drive Knight. Metal Knight has hardly really ever talked about anyone. I mean, he's had that encounter with Genos. He's been involved in a few bonus chapters here and there. But that's about it. Like, I wish there was just more light shed on him. Now, obviously, he's going to have a confrontation with Saitama eventually because Saitama seems to be his prime target at the moment, at least currently in the webcomic. Also, he has, like, an ultimate goal. There's some kind of grand scheme that he has building up that involves the Hero Association and just ultimate control. So what that ultimately boils down to, don't know, but I don't know if he does know Drive Knight considers him an enemy. Now, it seems like Metal Knight has, like, intel or, like, bugs possibly somewhere. Maybe he had, like, the room bugged at the meeting, or maybe he had bugs on somebody else, and maybe he can just hear essentially everything. That hasn't been revealed yet, but it just seems like something that he can have. So maybe he does know Drive Knight's intentions and motivations, possibly. It's very possible that the evil lurking in the shadows that he's worried about more than the Monster Association when he's talking to Child Emperor, that could be the organization. I'm going to make a video about that. There's a few things that he could be talking about. But I think it's fair to say that he's definitely interested in Drive Knight because he is mechanical and whatnot. So he would definitely have his eye on him. But it just really doesn't seem like Metal Knight knows what Drive Knight is or anything, because we haven't had that direct confrontation yet. So I'm going to say right now that he probably isn't suspicious of Drive Knight being an enemy to him or having beef with him or being a part of the organization. But I do think that he's definitely interested in Drive Knight to some degree. Teague A H asks, I hope I said your name right. Hey Shonen, I was a Patreon a while back, but I had to stop due to my expenses. I'm back now though, and I'm extremely excited to contribute more to this channel. Hey, I remember you, Teague, so thank you so much for coming back. I really appreciate it a lot, my friend. My first question is, when it comes to the 170,000-year-old Magicicada adult, do you think that Elder Centipede is somehow related to them, or that there might be a whole underground centipede-type race like the Subterraneans? If so, would their own king as well as would they have their own king as well, or would Elder Centipede mostly be classified as that king? So maybe Elder Centipede is the king. It was kind of implied by Senior Centipede that he was like the big shot. So maybe he's the king. But also there was like on that mural, there was 2 centipedes above the Subterranean king. So where's the other one? We kind of like assumed that the big centipede guys were the Elder Centipedes. So either one was better than the other, which it didn't seem like. It seemed like they were uniform. So either Murata just did that for design, or there is another Elder Centipede out there lurking, or maybe there's like an ancient centipede, and he's going to come back later on. He's even bigger than Elder Centipede, more powerful possibly, and maybe he's the king. But as of right now, it seems like Elder Centipede is the big shot, or at least the most powerful of the centipedes. And that goes into me thinking that there definitely is a race of centipedes down there. I don't think it's just a coincidence that we saw Junior, Senior, and then Elder. I don't think that's just where the lineage stops. I'm sure there's a whole bunch of other ones, and they probably lived together with the Subterraneans down there. They somehow lived in this weird monstery harmony. But I don't think the cicadas are related to them. The only relation that they really have is that they're bugs that became monsters. This is just something that happens in the world, as we've seen so far, like with Neon, Overgrown Rover. Like, environmental factors can contribute to, like, animals and non-people becoming monsters as well. The sea folk are kind of like that. They're just kind of born that way. If we would have seen, like, the cicadas a part of that mural, or if we would have seen, like, their casings or stuff down there, then maybe. But we didn't really see anything like that. And also, I would like for the cicadas to come back into the story, but so far they only exist in those bonus chapters. So then we get more info on them, and that would be cool. But I do think it's more of a chance that the Elder, or just the centipedes in general, are going to come back, since there was quite a bit of them. And then my last question is, Shonen versus Red Nose, who you got? Good question. So last time Shonen was power scaled, this was like last year. I think I did it on my 10,000 subscriber video. He was like above Wolf. Or maybe, no, I think it was earlier this year. He was classified as above Wolf. And Red Nose is like way down in the C class. I think he's like ranked 385 or something like that. So he's definitely not that powerful. But he's probably above like a standard person. Because the Okami Mask Red Muffler, who's C class 89, he was like a 200 or something. And then like a regular person is like a 20. And then we saw like a Wolf was like a little below Red Muffler. So it seems like a Wolf would be super competitive, if not maybe too much for Red Nose. Maybe he would need his friend. So an above Wolf would probably take care of Red Nose, meaning that Shonen, who is not me, would probably take care of Red Nose Wolfpup asks, Shonen, bad news, man. 2 months ago, I accidentally locked myself out of my truck and had to call tow service and charge me $95, which sucks. Oh, wait, this is a Q&A. I hate that, dude. Sometimes it's like a scam, how much they just outrageously gouge your money out for just car services in general. Now that I'm back, my first question is on chapter 106 of the manga. What would have happened if Neon didn't witness Saitama's power on display and decided not to attack him and went on his merry way? If one went in a different direction with Neon's fate, do you think he could have survived the war arc and maybe give Daedric Genos his first dragon kill against Neon later in the story? What do you think, or do you prefer Drive Knight to finish off Neon right there and then in the war arc? So the Daedric Genos versus Neon question, I answered that real in depth on your written question and response, so check that out. But as for him surviving the war arc, I don't think he would have lived. He didn't seem like the type of character who was going to make it through that, and he didn't really seem like all that important to the story the way that Black S and Overgrown Rover do. Like, Saitama had like a pseudo-affinity kind of for Overgrown Rover, but not so much with Neon, even though in this situation he's not going to meet him, but eventually he will. I mean, if it's ultimately going to come down to Saitama versus Awakened Gaara, which it is, he's going to run into Neon sooner or later, and it just didn't seem like he cared, or Neon cared, similar in that situation. But as for Drive Knight, I do like that he finished him off the way that he did. I think it cleans up things, and it's going to set it on the original path that it was intended to go on. And I don't think the war really needs more people than it already does. Now, it would be cool if Neon was there. You know, the more the merrier, and it would have like more opponents for more people to do and stuff. But I really do like the way that things are wrapping up right now with this little mini arc between Neon and, not even mini arc, but just this storyline between Neon and Drive Knight. My second question is similar to the first. Which of the 4 characters between Pre-Woke Garo, Puri Prisoner, Child Emperor, temporarily until Drive Knight comes to save him, and Daedric Genos could one-on-one Neon if one decided to take this route? How will the battle be concluded for each of the 4 characters, and what strategy could each individual come up with a plan against Neon's speed and abilities? Who would you like to see take on Neon if one really decided to finish him off in the war arc? So I feel like Pre-Woke Garo would just be too much for Neon. He's proven that he's way too much. So it really depends on if you're talking about like the Pre-Woke Garo that fought Orochi or the one that's post Orochi, because I think both would probably take care of Neon. He would eventually just catch him. Like, maybe Neon's faster than him. Maybe. But Pre-Woke Garo showed in his fight against Orochi that he's ridiculously fast. And I feel like he definitely has the reflexes to take care of him. I feel like he's tanky enough to probably at least block some of Neon's strikes, and the Whirlwind Iron Cutting Fist or the Crossfang Dragon Slayer Fist would be enough to take care of Neon, in my opinion. I just think Garo, especially Pre-Woke, is just too skilled, too powerful, even for Neon. Puri Prisoner, he didn't really seem that impressive against him. He almost got one-shotted by him. Now, if Puri Prisoner could somehow use the advantage that he has over him, you know, with the overbearing owner that he used to have, giving him PTSD. If he could somehow make Neon submit to him somehow, then he could win. But if Neon just decided to go through with the fight, I think that he would probably take him out. Still, even with his bristle armor and his regeneration abilities that he has. Neon just seems like way too much for somebody like Puri Prisoner, even at this point in his power. And then Child Emperor, he's probably not going to have Brave Giant at this point. But even if he did have Brave Giant, it's really up in the air if he could still take down Neon, since he was bringing a similar type of attack that Phoenix Man had. Like, Phoenix Man slashed up Brave Giant pretty good, and it seems like Neon probably excels more than him in the sharp claw slash attacks department, and probably just as fast, if not faster, than Phoenix Man. So Child Emperor would have a really difficult time against him. If he didn't have Brave Giant, man, he would have to do something slick with his backpack in order to overcome him, which I'm not sure what he could do at this moment, unless he had some sticky goo stuff similar to what Genos used against the Awakened Cockroach. Then he would have a chance. But other than that, I think what you're saying with Drive Knight having to come and save him would ultimately happen here. And then who I would like to finish him off in the war arc if he were to survive, I would like for Genos to kill him. I would like for him to get that dragon win. But please go read that written response that I gave you. That will give you a more in-depth answer into Daedric Genos versus Neon. And my last question is, what if E-Iron, Okama Itachi, and Bushi Drill were to go up against G5 instead of Devil Longhair? Do you think they would have defeated / dismembered G5, or would G5 take the win? Thanks a million. Hey, thanks you a million, Wolf Pup. I appreciate your support so much. So, this is a good question. Atomic Samurai says that just when I thought that you were going to be a good training dummy for my students or disciples. He says something like that, which kind of implies that he feels that the disciple trio could take down G5. So if either Atomic Samurai is being a little hyperbolic here, or this is legitimate insight into how powerful G5 is and the likelihood of the disciples taking him down. Now, as it just appears to be, at least from my perspective, I don't think they could. Maybe they could ultra high diff him, like even being pushed further than what Devil Longhair pushed them. It's a possibility, I suppose, but it just seems like the speed that G5 showed against Atomic Samurai might be just too much for them. Also, like, his method of attack, the ability for him to read your attacks and then implement them into his own, he could do that against them. I just feel like he would probably be too much, but it all really depends on how much you want to take into consideration what Atomic Samurai said. So either what he said is true, or that was kind of like a guesstimation. But right now, I'd say that G5 is probably more likely to defeat them than they are to defeat him. Zapphod B asks, what do you think happened to the remains of Elder Centipede? Could Bafoi have taken them for research, or did Saitama's punch render it unsalvageable? Could we ever see an EC Armor Metal Knight? So right now, it kind of seems like maybe they were just cleaned up by the Hero Association, whatever cleanup crew they have. Or they just disintegrated on their own, or just eventually just decayed enough to go into the earth, Maybe, but no kind of emphasis or any kind of light was ever shed on what happened to them. Now, Metal Knight did show interest in them, obviously. He was like, oh, super powerful armor. This is very interesting. Not even my missiles are damaging it. So unless we're going to find out later on that, off-panel, Metal Knight sent one of his little recovery drones, or a whole bunch of them, similar to what he did with Boros' ship, take them and then made them for research, and then broke them down into some kind of alloy and then made it as an armor. That would be awesome. I would really like to see that. Also, how would you rank the Straw Hat Grand Fleet captains in terms of power? Thanks, Jonas. Say awesome. So this is a good question. A little difficult, but I'm going to try again. So, starting at the bottom, I'd go with Orlumbus. He is the least impressive, and he doesn't really have any super great qualities about him. He has superhuman strength for sure. He's very powerful. And that's kind of really all he has going for him. Then Leo, man, I really don't like this character. I mean, he's fine, I guess, but his whole storyline is so boring. But he's super fast. That's one of his redeeming qualities. Deceptively strong. That's the whole Tontada thing. And then his fruit's kind of cool, how he could sew things together. That's kind of interesting. But he didn't really have any, outrageous or outstanding feats. Hadrudin, it really could be either or between him and Leo, but I'll just put Hadrudin above him because Hadrudin, despite being a giant, really wasn't that impressive in his feats and didn't really seem to be as strong as what he could be implied to be. Doesn't mean he's a weakling, but he's just a little underwhelming in his feats, in my opinion. Idio, a little underwhelming too, but still pretty powerful. His the punching abilities that he has is pretty cool, and he is a part of the Long Arm tribe, similar to Apu, so that's kind of cool. But I'm just going to put him above Hadrudin because he had a better performance than Hadrudin, but just by a little bit, honestly, and his techniques and his techniques overall just seems to be better. And then the top three. This is a little difficult. So I'll put Cavendish at 3. Cavendish, very skilled, obviously. Super powerful. One of the strongest Grand Fleet members, for sure. One of the strongest characters in Dressrosa in general. I didn't expect him to be as powerful as he was. Very skilled swordsman. I don't think his hockey is anything special. Did we? Man, it's hard to remember, but I don't really think he did anything outstanding with hockey or anything like that. Now, Hakuba is a whole different thing, which is something that he can't control. Now, if he was able to, tap into Hakuba and use it at will, then, yeah, he'd be the strongest probably. His speed is insane. His skill, everything just goes absurdly high at that point. But I just don't think without Hakuba, he's going to take the number 1 spot here. So number 2, I've got Barto. Love Barto, one of my favorite characters. And really, it could be either or between him and Cavendish at number 2. But Barto's fruit is just ridiculous. But yes, he is one of those characters that relies on it a little too much. But still, nothing has ever broken the shield. The barrier no me. Not even Hakuba could break it. Not even the King Punch could break it. It's so versatile as well. I don't think Barto has ever done anything with hockey either. So that's kind of holding him back. But still, his fruit just alone is putting him at the top here. Super impressive. I can't wait to see more from this guy. And then Don Sai. I think he's like objectively the strongest Grand Fleet member for sure. His hockey seems to be way more advanced than anyone else here. He has the best feats. You know, he defeated Dan Shinjiao. Come on. Who had freaking Conqueror's hockey, who, kind of pushed base Luffy, well, using Gear 3 and stuff, but he has some pretty good feats to himself. Dan Shinjiao alone, but then he beat him, beat the horn thing, and then he beat Lao Ji, one-shotted him. It seems like Don Sai is definitely cut above the rest here, at least for now. So that's pretty much it for the video today, guys. Once again, I want to thank all 71 of my amazing, attractive, just super cool patrons. Guys, I love you so much, and I really do hope the Q&A is good enough to give back to everything that you've given me. And if you would like to be in next week's Q&A, just simply check out my Patreon. The $5 tier will give you access to this video. And if you haven't already, please subscribe as well. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.